Welcome to today's podcast with the Yogi and the Blonde. I'm Nadia, aka the Yogi, and this is
Michelle, aka The Blonde.
welcome to today's episode. Now, this episode is the dynamic duo exploring motion and tempo and exercise. So, we're going to actually talk about movement today. We are going to talk about the difference between motion and tempo. Now, it's quite interesting if you think about, if you observe without judgment, without criticism, and you just are people watching in a gym or group exercise or anything like that, notice if they're like swinging their arms around. Are they swinging, creating that motion, or are they actually slowing down and using the muscles and going to a tempo? And that's what we're going to talk about, the difference today. Now,
that was so lovely of you to say, people watching without criticism or judgment. That was so lovely.
That's the thing is, though, I don't want people thinking, to watch and criticize. That's not my thing. It's just to observe. And I think that's how we should be looking at things, is in an observation way.
Yes.
Rather than looking at them and going, oh, they're not doing it right. It's just going, I wonder why they're moving that way. What's making them wanting to move that way? If you're doing something speed-wise, yeah, that makes sense. But if you're wanting to create strength through something, then you got to slow it down at the start to get the feeling of knowing how to activate the muscle. And once you know how to activate your muscle, then you can increase your tempo, which then may look like motion for some people. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So what we're really talking about is, you might be somebody that goes to the gym, which is great, but you might also be somebody that feels like you're never really getting stronger. You're just kind of spinning your wheels. And it's like, well, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? And what we commonly see with clients and just kind of happenings going on in the gym is people moving. And I guess this is where the saying comes from, going through the motions. They're going through the motions of the movements of the exercise, but they're not getting the benefit of it because they're just going through the motion. They're allowing their body to swing or rock or, sway, whatever, which is helping to move the weight, for example, from one position to the next, rather than using the actual muscle with the intention that you want it to. That's what we're talking about, really, eh?
Yeah, that's correct. That's you nailing it on the nose. Nailing it on the nose. Because for those who've been listening to our podcast, Michelle and I used to work in a gym together at Les Mills in Auckland and Newmarket. Since it's coming up to 6 months, by the way, Michelle, that I've been here.
Wow.
It's been 6 months since I left, since I started my road trip down to the South Island. But since I got to Maruria will be the 3rd of June, which is on Monday.
That's next week. Wow.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Time flies, but it also feels like you've been there forever as well, which is weird.
Oh, okay. Okay. Each their own perspective. That's cool.
We've just moved on at the gym.
I feel love. But what I'm getting at in this is that Michelle works with people one-on-one in the gym. For myself, I am a group setting because I am teaching yoga classes, mindfulness classes, sauna infusion, which is hot cold therapy. And once a week, I do as well what we call a strength and stretch, which we use resistant bands. And I've been starting with that is getting people first. We do a bit of a warm up, and then I get them to learn how to activate their body, which is kind of like a mixture of how we are when we first stand in Tadasana and mountain pose, but that is like the top of a squat, of a deadlift, of just activating the body. So it's being in the body, activating your muscles. Because even in yoga, a lot of people think yoga is about stretch and just falling into it, and it's all flexibility, but we need strength. And you've got so many different body types. So it's about teaching people the tempo, and we actually play with the tempo. So I'll be like, okay guys, let's go down, and we're going down into like a squat, and 3, 2, 1, and we hold for 2, 1, and we come up 4, 3, 2, 1, and you feel the burn, and that's when you feel the muscle working. And if you were to just go up and down, you'd still get a workout, don't get me wrong on that, but it's about creating that mind-body connection when we start to implement the tempo. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree, Michelle?
Yes. I think it's so much easier training people one-on-one. It must be so hard doing that in a group setting, because at least when you're training somebody in a one-on-one, you can actually use the sensation of touch to literally physically say, this is the part that you need to stabilize. Let's tense through here. Let's think about this. So in a one-to-one setting, it does, for me, I find it a lot easier than having to try and explain to people how to engage their body with words.
Yeah. And it's like the way I used to have the setup of the studio, because it's quite a long studio, is I'd be at one end and then I'd fit everybody through that way. Now I flipped it around so I can actually have better eye connection with everyone around, and I can actually see them. So, and I've just recently done this. So I did a class the other day, and it was interesting because then I could actually see people and go and just create that eye contact with them, and they know I'm talking to them because I'm looking at them, because I won't know their names, because it's not like working at a wellness retreat. It's not like I have the same people that come to the classes all the time, because people only stay here for a night up to 5-7 days. So it changes. The people who stay longer and come to the classes regularly, I do build a relationship with them in that short period of time. But so then I can adjust them. But yeah, when it comes to that, because I want to work out as well, and I want to create that movement with them. So it's interesting. I do miss the one-on-one. I do miss that as well. But I'm still teaching. It doesn't matter. So
you're still helping people.
I'm still helping people.
No, I talk about this a lot with my clients, because I'm big on them actually really focusing on what they're doing and the muscles that they're using and what they're trying to achieve. Because most people come to me because they want to get fitter, they want to get stronger. So I explain how we need to stress the muscle in order to make this happen. And they always kind of remark like, oh my God, that's so much harder than it looks. I get that all the time. I will give people, like a step up, a wall supported step up. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. I'm like, okay, let's go for 10 on each leg. And then they finish and they're like, oh my God, that is so much harder than it looks. And it's because I'm making them do it in a slow, controlled way, thinking about where to activate from, push through your heel, hinge forward, telling them actually where they need to be feeling it. And when they finish their reps, they're like, oh my God, who knew that just stepping up onto a step would be that difficult? Because you could just use motion. You could bounce off the floor. You could bounce up and down, use momentum to do the movement, or you can really break it down and focus, and you get a real burn by the end of it. And that's how you get stronger, because you've activated your muscles. So it's something that I'm really big on with my clients. Some core activation. Core is like a classic where people will use motion over tempo. And, there's movements like the bird dog, which is also in yoga. You could just swing your arms and legs around, or the dead bug. You can just swing around and nothing will happen. Or you can really think about it and do 10 and be like shaking. What's going to get you the best results?
Well, I do one where it is bird dog, but rather than going elbow knee connection, it's actually taking the arm and the leg out to the side and then sweep it back, but have it controlled. So you're holding it out, extending opposite hand. And then a lot of people kind of lean into it and kind of use the spine rather than using the shoulder and the hip joint. And so you kind of
Oh.
see them kind of swinging through with that. So it's two things. It's stabilizing with the core, and
Yeah.
then also getting them to use the muscles within the hip and shoulder joint, because it's
Yeah.
a socket joint, right? So it's quite fascinating to see that, and how people kind of want to rush. And I'll be like, 3, 2, 1, hold, 1, 2, and back, 3, 2, 1, and hold, and then going. And then when you're slowing it down, it's like, wow. So I get it. And it's stuff like that. You can really create that isolation where you're working on balance. So it's working the stability muscles. You're working on keeping that tension with the core to create the isolation. So then you're just moving through the hip and shoulder joint as you take the arm and the leg out to the side. And then also creating that connection of that mind body, as well as with the breath with it as well. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
there's lots going on there. And I've
Suddenly something that's simple becomes actually quite
quite
complicated and
challenging.
challenging. Yeah.
But it's also brings into that mindset of like, a lot of people go to the gym and then just go on autopilot, and that's where the emotions come in. And that's where you get a lot of people that go to classes because they don't want to think about what they need
Yeah.
to do. They go to a personal trainer because they don't want to think what they have to do. And that's fine. And I don't know how many clients I've had when I was doing one-on-one, is like, a lot of them would be going to the gym for 10 years. But then when it came to doing sessions with me, they're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm learning how to work out for the first time. I feel like I've been doing it wrong. And I keep telling them, like, you haven't been doing it wrong. It's just you were not aware of how to do it correctly and how to create that mind body connection. They're like, oh my God, my brain hurts because I got to think. Well, you should be thinking.
Yes.
You should
Yeah.
be
I want you
like,
thinking. Yes.
yeah, you should be processing and connecting the body and the mind as you move in that way as well. It's, yeah, because when you think about it, when you're doing balance exercises, actually balance exercise is good for your brain health, because you got to create that stability and you got to create that activation and not just be there. Because I don't know if you ever do this, Michelle, with your clients. I'll even do this in class. I'll get them, like, for breathing, for example, getting them to stand up nice, sit up nice and tall and breathe, and then I'll get them to slouch and breathe, or I'll get them to be standing and just be relaxed, or in a plank. Like in a plank, if you just get them to just be in a plank and then activate all the muscles in a plank, totally different. It's harder, but it's easier at the same time, because you've got the whole body supporting. Otherwise, it feels heavy, right?
And
I don't
hard.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love all of that. I love how that all works and how that all connects. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's about mind body. When you're working out, you should have a mind body connection.
Yeah.
That's just my point of view.
Yeah. Train with intention. You're going to the gym because you want to be strong. You want to have good muscle mass. You want to have good bone health. You want to be healthier. So, train with intention. You're at the gym. You got over the hard part. You got to the gym. Some people don't even get to the gym. So now that you're there, train with intention. Think about, what am I trying to achieve out of this movement? And think about it. And then you'll be so surprised. Just, wow. Oh my God. And then you'll be how quickly you can progress from there. Brilliant.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. It's like, there's a movement I do when we go from plank to downward facing dog, and then we're going to go back into tabletop. And a lot of people just drop the knees down coming in tabletop. Tabletop, for those that don't know, is on your hands and knees, right? So you're in downward facing dog and you're releasing the knees to the ground, but you're slowly moving with intention. So you're like needing to activate muscles as you slow yourself down to go into it. And it's quite amazing just to watch when I say move with intention, slow. Some people just drop the knees right down because they don't have that connection of that mind body connection of let's slow down. And then other people, as soon as I say slow down and move with intention, you'll see them slowly moving down. Quite fascinating. And you can see that they're like connecting that. And that's how we should be. So the tempo is slowing things down. It's about this is why I use counting, because you can say slow things down, but people don't slow down. Because I notice that as well in the class is I'll be like, okay, let's go slow, guys. And I just won't tempo it at first and see. And then I kind of watch people. Again, just observing, not judging, not criticizing, just observing. So then I know how to play around with that and go, okay, now let's add the tempo. Okay, guys, when I say slow down, this is what I mean. We're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1. And you see people sometimes at 2 and they're already at the bottom. Let's say if we're doing a tricep, I do with the resistant band tricep pull down. We'll be at 2 and we still have another 2 more counts and they'll be at the bottom. You know what I mean? And we're going to hold down there for 2. So they're holding down there for 4. So, and then coming up, a lot of people just go boom and resist up. So if you're like resisting, you're fighting against that tension. So that means you're working the muscle on both the concentric and eccentric of the movement. So the up and down. Yeah. And it's just, I find that so fascinating with seeing the tempo and playing with the tempo. And not saying that motion isn't good, but it's once you get the tempo down, and that means by months, years of working with it, then you can do those really fast-paced classes, but create tension in it because you know how to activate your body.
Yeah. Actually, I trained someone on Wednesday who was a class addict. She came to me and couldn't squat. Like she was squatting, she thought she was squatting, knees were caving in. And, it took me a few weeks to get her squat technique right. We had to use bands. And anyway, she's barbell squatting now. And we go up every week. She's absolutely nailed it. And she said to me on Wednesday, she said, learning all of this and us working on the squat in particular, she says, I'm feeling it so much more in my classes now because she's learned how to get the most activation. So even in a body pump class, you're moving through your squat position so quickly. And a lot of people are just going motion. They're popping down, popping up, dropping like a squat. She's now taking the time to actually engage the muscles and she's feeling it. Like
I've had a lot of clients like that as well. A lot of them were they love doing the classes and they do 1 or 2 sessions with me a week on the gym floor, and that's the only time they'd be on the gym floor. And that actually helped with their progression in the classes, and they felt it. Because I remember, this is one of my favorite ones. One of my clients, we were doing a lateral lunge, so a side lunge, and I remember I kind of seen her eyes just kind of roll back going, oh my God, I do this in class. But then I actually, through our session, she's like, oh my God, I've been doing that wrong the whole time. And she's, after that, when they started doing, and they were doing side lunges in class, she's like, my glutes hurt, like my muscles are sore, because she learned how to activate properly.
Yeah. So once you know, but you just gotta know in the first place. So if you feel like this sounds like you, if you're listening and you're like, oh, maybe that's me. Try it. Try slowing it down. Try thinking about what you're doing and just see what difference it makes. And let us know. Let us know. We want to know.
Let us know. And it's just really just even having the activation at the top and having the activation at the bottom of the movement as well. It's not just during, but it's when you come to the top. Like, I'm going to go back to squat because everybody knows what that squat is. And when you come up to the squat, you activate the full body and you ground down through the feet. What I call yoga toes is spreading the toes. Hey, does Vanessa still talk about yoga toes?
Yes, when you said that. Nadia looked after one of my clients while I was on holiday and introduced my client to the concept of yoga toes. So now every time I get my Vanessa to do, it's always on leg extensions and leg curls. She always references Nadia's yoga toes.
Because she's mentioned, I remember her sending a message to me a while back and going, yoga toes. I should send her a message and just write yoga toes.
Just yoga toes. She'll be like, oh.
Gotta activate. But it's just activating from the ground up. Like, your feet should be active as well, right? And like if you notice, there's a lot of studies now showing, even with how our feet in shoes are all scrunched up. And actually, like, for those that are watching video, if you're looking at my hand, like, these are your toes and they're all scrunched up, but actually we should be spreading them. And when you spread them and they're grounded down into the floor and they're spread, you're actually lifting up the arch. And by lifting up the arch, then you're activating, you're getting the 4 points of the foot into the floor as well. And that helps with that foundation, especially if you're doing like squats and you're doing back squats and deadlifts and all of that. And even like stepping back into a lunge or a forward lunge or a back lunge, and yeah, helps with that foundation. So it's like literally from the ground up. And even like, because I find that, I don't know if you've noticed this, Michelle, is, let's say you're wanting to isolate the movement through the bicep, okay? And you're just working the bicep. You're not working the front delt, but you're also, it's just the bicep. Then you do things like, okay, my bottom of my legs are active. I'm just not just standing there, but I'm activating them. I'm squeezing my muscles. I'm embracing my core, squeezing the elbow along the side of the body because I'm wanting to just work my bicep. So it's just like, even those things that you bring into play within that tempo will help activate it. Because I remember, I don't know for you, Michelle, but I remember as a kid and being, or even years ago, and going to the gym and people just like squeeze that muscle, and I was like, I'm squeezing it. But now I get it. It's like, activate the body, squeeze that elbow and squeeze that muscle and slow it down, so you're actually using the muscle. And this
creating
is really
that tension.
Yeah, creating that tension within the full movement. And this is really important as well for females, to make sure we are working on that muscle and creating strength with that muscle as we age. Michelle, what happens as we age?
100%. As we age, when our hormones start to fluctuate, we start to lose some of our bone mineral density and our muscle mass. So if we're not onto it, building decent muscle before our hormones start to fluctuate, or even while they're fluctuating, or once they have declined, then that muscle's gone. It's on its way out. So you've got to get strong, girls.
It is. It's very, very important.
Super important.
And you look at Girls Be Strong, you look at Stacey Sims, all of them, Dr. Stacey Sims, they all talk about lifting heavy and creating resistance training. If you're scared that you're going to bulk up, it's really, really, really hard. But again, everybody's built differently, and depending on your genetics and your genes, some people will create muscle mass a lot easier, but generalization, this is generalization, not individual, but in generalization for women, it's harder to bulk up.
Yeah.
So.
I've been trying for years.
Well, I had an ex, he easily put on like, just had one of them natural bodies. He didn't go to the gym or anything like that. He wasn't a buff, but he was active and he had toned muscle. And the same thing with his sister. She like wasn't like someone that would focus on weight on resistance training, but she just had that natural body where it was easy for her to build muscle. So it wouldn't take much for her to do. So everybody's body's different, so that's why you can never compare as well. But anyways, I think
that's
we've
another story for another day.
Another day, another thing. But in saying that, give it a try doing the tempo. Anything you want to finish off here, Michelle, before we sign off?
No, I think we've covered everything. But just when you're in the gym next, just think of me and Nadia on your shoulders, saying, "Come on, think of that muscle."
You can move with intention.
Think of that muscle. Move with intention. Slow it down. We'll be your little training buddies.
Yeah. And as always, if you guys resonate with either myself or Michelle, we do work with people online, so that's always an option as well as too. So that's not trying to sell you. That's not my thing. I'm all about resonation. If you resonate with someone, work with them. Why not? Give it a twirl. You never give it a twirl. Give it a twirl. And you just never know, right? So I think we've planted a good little seed.
Yes.
And Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, again, always share what you guys have taken away from this. We'd love to hear you guys' feedback on what's your takeaway, what was your highlight. Share it with someone who, a workout buddy who might also benefit from it. Anyways, guys,
Your
that's us from
friend
the
who's
Yogi.
swinging their bicep curls. Send it to
Don't
them.
swing the bicep curls. Move. Like, even if you are, this is what I'm going to finish off with this. I don't know if you do this, Michelle, but even if you are in a class, I would get my clients to slow down. Like, if you're going in a class and it's like a Les Mills pump class, and that's quite fast. What I would suggest to them is say, add more weights and slow the movement down.
Yeah.
And use the tempo. So you can even implement that. If you're not a person that goes to the gym and doesn't go onto the gym floor, but you do a lot of classes, think about move with intention and slow down.
Yeah.
You'll still get an amazing workout. Trust me. You like that? Michelle's doing thumbs up for those not watching the video. Okay. I think I've said enough. I felt like I've
said enough. We'll be back.
We'll be back. Now, if there's any other topics you guys want us to go over, say, share, whatever, just comment anywhere. We are on Instagram. You can email us. And for those watching on YouTube, we are also on Spotify. Those on Spotify, we are also on YouTube. Anywho, sending lots of love, guys. Thank you very much for watching, listening, and we'll see you around. Ciao.